Good morning, Algebra 2 students, and welcome to Wednesday. I was about to say that. Tomorrow, Thursday, is your test, so hopefully we're getting ready for that test. I need everybody to listen up, please. There are a few people who I have not heard from, and if I don't hear from you and you don't work on your test before the break, that's not going to be the greatest thing. So I'm about to list off a bunch of names. If you hear somebody's name and can reach out to them and just say, hey, Miss Jabs really needs to hear from you. Or if your name is called, please email me today's video chat, something like that. I am going to be reaching out to you guys and trying to get a hold of you as well today, but just as long as I'm making this video, I figure why not say your name and make sure that people know that I'm looking for them. So Lana Janine, Bria, Brianna, and Faith Spencer. Chloe, Javon, Tanasia, Sterling, Jamil, Amaya, Anthony, Alfonso, Xavier, Malik Kennedy, and Debriana. Okay, you guys have been doing work for me, some of you more than others, so I know you're doing stuff, but I have not heard from you yet about this test, and so I need to hear back from you about the test, please. Thank you for those of you who have sent me some questions and say, hey, Miss Jabs, these are the questions I have. I have a few papers for us to look through today. If you are still confused or still have questions, please reach out and ask me. But tomorrow you're going to be taking your test, and you guys signed up for different times. Just as a quick thing, if you signed up for 9 to 11, it's not necessarily going to take you that whole time. All right, but I need you to be working on the test starting at 9. So at 9, you're going to be working on the test, and I'm going to know that because I'm going to video chat with you, and you're going to be able to see me. And that's going to be on some instructions I send out to everybody today. And so when it's your testing time, as soon as your window opens up, so if you're in the 9 to 11, right away at 9 o'clock, you're going to start working on your test. As soon as you're done, it would just be like, if you're in my class and you finish, you can hand in your test and just do whatever else you usually want to. Usually in class, for me, it's sleep, but now it might be work for other classes or work on other things. But if you signed up for the 9 to 11 at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, you better start working on your test. If you signed up for 2 to 4 at 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, you better start working on your test. And if you signed up for the 5 to 7, at 5 p.m., you better start working on your test. And as soon as you're done, you may be excused and be done. Again, there's going to be instructions, and tomorrow I'll do a video so you know what's going on with that. To get your point for the day, once I do send the email that says here are kind of just a little bit of a preview of your, here is a little bit of a preview of what's going to happen tomorrow, you respond to that email saying, thanks, Miss Jabs, I read the email, and you got your point for the day. So a few of the questions that people had. Question number 1, I don't know what you mean when you say tell me a trig ratio. Guys, trig ratios is just sine, cosine, and tangent and lining that up. You probably will already be given all 3 numbers on each side. Sorry, I was doing a video before and all of a sudden my computer shut off, so the answer kind of was written here. So I put a little post-it note over it. We can't really see it. You can barely even see that. So here's our triangle. We have triangle ABC. A is a right angle, so 10 would be the hypotenuse. We don't know what's opposite and adjacent yet because I have not asked you yet, are we finding A or are we finding something compared to B? And so what if, this would be written on the paper already, this would be on the test. What if it said, tell me the sine of B? All right, well then we have to think about angle B, which is up here. We already figured out the hypotenuse is 10. And so angle B, sine means opposite. So if I go opposite of it, 8. A hypotenuse is 10. So the answer would sort of be 8 over 10. But I bet, I bet some of you know why I said the answer would sort of be 8 over 10. The answer would sort of be 8 over 10 because if we were in math class and I said your answer is 8 over 10, you guys would all say to me, actually, Miss Jabs, shouldn't we reduce? Always, always, always. So when you're working on this, please make sure you always reduce your answer. So if this was question number 1, and I think something like this shows up on today's review homework, if this was question number 1, your answer would be sine of B equals 4 over 5, and 4 over 5 would be your answer. There was that review quiz that we did last Wednesday. That's still posted. I believe I still have it open. There's a few of you who haven't taken that yet, so if you haven't taken it, you can get some points for that. You won't get all your points. But if you kind of want to relook through that and relook at how those multiple choice questions show up on that paper, that is how they would show up maybe on the homework tonight or the test tomorrow. Maybe it won't be multiple choice, but it will still say like find the sine of A, find the sine of Z, find the sine of M. So that's one way when you have all three sides already written down. A lot of you the last few days as you've been working on one of the problems, you're like, hey, Miss Jabs, there's a problem that has all three legs already written down. How do I find the angle if I know all three legs? Once again, because my computer shut down a second ago, I already wrote something on here, but that's all I did. So I hope everybody would know why that we would write hypotenuse right there. It is across from the right angle. Now, if they give you all three sides, it actually gives you your own option. Would you please tell me what is next to the question mark? And next to means adjacent, right? So next to adjacent. Would you please tell me what's across from the question mark? And across means opposite. So that 21 would be opposite and the 14 would be adjacent and your 25 would be hypotenuse. Since we now have all three words written down, you don't have to do this, but I'm just going to speak out loud so everybody would know. And I'm going to write it on my paper, not that you would have to do it. Would anybody like to tell me what ratio you would write down for sine of question mark? Well, of course, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So you would write 21.4 over 25.7. That's how you could do it. And then if you had that, you know all those numbers, so you would use sine inverse. But that's not the only one you could use. Would anybody like to tell me what cosine is supposed to be? Adjacent is 14.3. Hypotenuse is 25.7. And so you could write down the ratio of cosine of our angle equals 14.3 over 25.7. What about tangent? Who would like to tell me what tangent equals? Tangent equals opposite, which is 21.4 over hypotenuse. Tangent equals opposite over adjacent, which is 14.3. And so we could actually write down any of those trig ratios. And since we could write any of those trig ratios, you could use any one. Just make sure now when you're using your calculator, you really think about what one you're using. Remember, if you are solving for an angle, you would use the inverse. So when you use your calculator, make sure you use the inverse. If you have any questions on your calculator, you might want to make sure they're answered before tomorrow's test. So I'm going to type it in, and actually it should not matter which one of these three ratios I type in. I'm choosing to type in sine inverse of 21.4 divided by 25.7. And my calculator is telling me that this should therefore be a 56-degree angle. This should be a 56-degree angle. Now, since I found that using sine, I don't even have to type in the other two. My answer is 56. I am done, and I may move on. So if all three are given, you get to kind of choose which trig function you get to use. Just make sure you use the correct one with the correct legs, okay, and the correct ratio. I got two more examples to go through, and then there is one more thing I want to talk about. But the next one is, hey, Miss Jabs, what if we're solving for the third side? Okay, if you're solving for the third side, if you can see here, there are actually no question marks whatsoever inside the triangle on this one. If you are solving for the third side, you'll use Pythagorean's theorem. Pythagorean's theorem, please be careful. A couple of you on the test, on the worksheet, when we did this one, you weren't careful about the following equation. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's all you have to remember, but it is very important to remember c has to be the hypotenuse. So if you look at this triangle I have, I already gave you the two legs. The hypotenuse is the unknown. So for this problem, I would just type in my calculator 11.7 squared, figure out what that was. I would take 17.6 and square it. I would add that to my 11.7 squared. Like I would write it down like this. And x squared would show up on this side by itself because x is the hypotenuse. So I'm going to actually go through this one so you remember, and I'm going to do each individual part because some of you did not do that. You kind of did it some other way and got something that was nowhere near the right answer. So when I did 11.7 squared, I got 136.89. When I do 17.6 and I square it, I get 309.76. Before I can do anything else, I have to add those two numbers together. So when I add 136.89 and 309.76, I get 446.65. That is equal to x squared. And once again, we did this a few weeks ago. To get rid of squared, you take the radical or the square root of both sides. Again, please make sure you know how to do that on your calculator. The square root of 446.65 equals approximately, meaning I should probably use that little squiggly equal sign, 21.1. Remember, if we're doing something with a side, the side should be rounded to the tenths place. If we're doing something with an angle, the angle should go to the whole degree. All right, so the next one I want to review as well is when you're solving for all three sides. And guys, if you're solving for all three sides and I cannot clearly see your work or how your work progresses or work to give all your problems, you are not going to get full credit. Okay, you got to show me how you got them. Obviously, if your answer is right, you did correct work, but if your answer is wrong, I'm just going to count them all wrong. Whereas if you show the work that you did, I might give you some points for it. All right, first of all, what do we know about the three angles of a triangle? And so on this particular problem, since I'm already given two of the angles, all I have to do on my calculator is take 180 degrees, because that's how many it's supposed to be, minus 90 degrees, minus 64 degrees. And so if I do that, I would get 26 degrees. My last angle should be 26 degrees in this. And that's how I can very quickly find angle Z. I suppose if I would want to, I could do something like the tangent inverse once I know the legs, but usually to me, finding the angle is easier if we add to 180, okay? So I found Z, so I'm gonna make a list right here, and again, you'll wanna have clearly marked answers on your test tomorrow. It looks like Z is supposed to be 26 degrees. So right here at the top, I have my box for my answer box, and it looks like Z equals 26 degrees. How could I find X or Y? Well, if I was you, I would only worry about one of them at a time. And even though I found what Z is, I'm gonna recommend that you pretend you don't know what Z is. So if I cover up X, and you know 64 degrees, and you know 16.4, and you're trying to find Y, 64 and 16.4 are opposite of each other, so 16.4 is an opposite value. The right angle is opposite Y, so Y is actually the hypotenuse. So it looks like right now I have opposite and hypotenuse. If I have opposite and hypotenuse, I should use sine. And so I'm going to write sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. But theta represents my angle. My angle is 64 degrees. My opposite value is 16.4. My hypotenuse, whoops, guys, I accidentally started to write X because I'm so used to solving for X on problems, so it looks like a weird letter right there, but it's Y. Please remember, if your unknown is in the denominator, that's when you do that little switcheroo we've been doing to solve. So I'm going to do 16.4 divided by the sine of 64 degrees. 16.4 divided by the sine of 64. And my calculator, again, Y is a side, so I'm going to round to the tenths place, is 18.2. 18.2. Y is 18.2. Now, since I did that to find Y, I can just move that piece of paper and cover up Y. And now I can worry about solving and finding X. Once again, if I'm looking at 64 degrees, 16 is opposite, still opposite. X is adjacent, so I have opposite and adjacent. Since I have opposite and adjacent, I'm going to use tangent. And remember, tangent equals opposite over adjacent. What is my angle? I'm still using that 64. If I would have wanted to, I could have switched up and used what I figured out Z was, but I'm going with what's on the paper right now. Opposite is my 16.4. Adjacent would be X. Again, look at your unknown is in the bottom. Sometimes we have to switch them both times. Sometimes we have to multiply them both times. Sometimes you do one of each. Please don't think you'll always do the one. And so it looks like to find this answer, I'm going to have to take 16.4 divided by the tangent of 64. And so if I type that in my calculator, ooh, this one's an interesting one. It says 7.99. The 9 would make the other 9 round up, and so X is gonna equal 8.0. I know this sounds funny, but it wasn't 8 exactly. So since it wasn't 8 exactly, I should probably write 8.0 because that was a rounded value. All right, so those are all kind of the questions that a lot of people asked about besides word problems. And so guys, I want to give you a hint about word problems. When you are doing a word problem, there is one of two ways the question could show up. You're always going to draw a triangle. if it says angle of elevation, your triangle is going to be a triangle where the right angle is on the bottom of your drawing, and the angle of elevation is going to be inside the bottom angle, because that would be looking up. If your question says something about an angle of depression, that means the person, and again, I'm just drawing little people right now so you kind of get the idea, right? So angle of elevation, the person was looking here and they were looking up. Angle of depression, the person is at the top and looking down. So your triangle, for angle of depression, your triangle should have the right angle at the top. Your person should be at the top, and therefore your angle should go up here at the top. Even if the question says something about what's the horizontal distance from, like, here's the deal. When we do this problem, we have another right, like if this person went straight down, they would be at the bottom and this would be a horizontal distance, but I gotta tell you something. This horizontal distance would be the same as this horizontal distance at the bottom. So if you have something that says angle of elevation, your triangle is gonna have the right angle on the bottom, your angle is gonna go up, and your angle goes in the bottom angle down here, because elevation means it's at the bottom and going up. Angle of depression, your triangle is gonna have the right angle up top, your person's going to be up top, and your angle, of course, because you have to go from the top down, is going to go in this top part right there. So hopefully that gives a little bit of a hint. Here is the deal. Tomorrow is your test. Yes, I will be available to ask questions tomorrow on the test, but you might want to get questions answered before tomorrow's test. So if you have any questions, you might want to try to email me today and say, hey, Ms. Jabs, thanks for going through the review, but I still have questions on this. Remember, you're not going to just do any old response today. I'm going to email the rules, and when you email back and say, Ms. Jabs, I read the email, that is how you get points for the day, by responding to that email. Okay, but if you still have questions, or you're still like, she didn't really answer the question I asked, I would like her to go through something else, please make sure you reach out and talk to me sometime today. Okay, I know usually I don't get back to people, sometimes maybe between like, I would say maybe 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. I'm kind of usually trying to take a little bit of a break right then. But because you guys are getting ready for a test, there's some other people getting ready for a test, and just it's the last few days before break and things like that, I probably will be a little bit more available at my computer, and I will be emailing back. I've also been staying up kind of late, like some of you have been getting emails from me sort of late, like you're responding back and forth with me a little bit later, so don't be afraid to reach out anytime. Again, usually between about the hours of, I would say maybe midnight till like 8 o'clock in the morning are not necessarily the best times to try to reach out to me. But other than that, especially the next few days as we're working on things, if you need to get a hold of me, I should be pretty available. So let me know if there's any other questions or any other things. Otherwise, just respond to the email that says and has some test directions about the test that we're taking tomorrow. If I said a name at the beginning and that was your name, please make sure you reached out and are talking to me, or remember those names and say, hey, Ms. Jabs really needs to talk to you. But I hope you guys have a good day, and good luck preparing for your test for me and any other work that you have today. Bye.